Weightlifting stuff if you want.
I'm watching porn while we're doing this. I'm Max Aita. I don't know. What do you want? How do you want me to? Can you see that? I have by contract I have to have something.
Right, of course.
Body by boiler.
Yeah, of course.
Some flame boiler has to be in every shot.
Max Aita at Juggernaut HQ. We're gonna make a really cool interview about smoking and lifting.
Probably
actually that's like I have a list of things. The first one is just all the stories you have about people smoking and lifting. Because everyone, I
all of
asked them
them
in the Facebook
individually.
group, and they were like, "Yeah, we want to know more about
the smoking and lifting."
Yeah,
I mean, what more is there? You smoke and you lift.
you smoke and you lift.
I think a lot of those guys, like in Europe, it's just smoking's popular and that's their job, and so they go on a smoke break between this.
Didn't Rigger smoke in the warm-up room?
Yeah, a lot of guys have heard of it.
Amazing.
Back in the 70s and 80s, it was, probably more popular in the U.S. too, but now smoking's not, it's not cool anymore. So
When are people gonna start doing it with pot? I think that's gonna work out pretty well.
doing what?
Smoking pot instead of cigarettes.
Oh.
I think that people in California would do that type of stuff.
It probably happens already. I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's always some jackass coming in high or something.
Why not? Or drunk.
Yeah, people coming drunk.
Yeah, but just questions in general about the Bulgarian training system. So you talked to me yesterday about how people call Bulgarian training this like working up to a max all the time and everything. But you actually talked about how you were doing things besides that. So you were doing
Well, yeah.
I can't remember what you said, but like you were doing 10 reps of different things, and the coach said you do a lot of things besides just maxing.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, it was very much just.
So it is kind of like the
It is very much maximum this and that, and sometimes different exercises, but not common. It wasn't like in the program year round to have those things. Sometimes it was just a matter of pushing you really hard, and so you do something else, or you do a set of 10 with this weight or 5 with that weight, like as a sort of a test, like not an evaluation, just like I'm gonna see if I can do this kind of thing.
Just to do it?
Just probably just for the sake of doing it. I mean, it wasn't the primary emphasis. Maximum weights was the primary.
So always just working up to an actual max with your miss.
Maximum, absolute maximum.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no like training max. There was no like. There is.
Lift the fucking weight.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's the way to do things or it's the best way. It's just, That's what was my experience with Abujayev was it's very much absolute maximums.
Yeah. How would you do it differently now? I think that's
If I do weightlifting differently.
Yeah, if you would actually go, because some would say like training volume on itself is a lot greater.
There's so
A
many.
lot greater, but it's
On one side of the coin, I probably wouldn't do things differently because I learned a lot.
yeah.
On the other side of the coin, I might do things more systematically and maybe do a little more different exercises. If I only changed a couple of things, I probably would have just added in more exercises for my back. My back was really weak and I didn't understand how to lift. Or maybe just learn better technique. Maybe would have made me a better lifter, that kind of stuff. I would have done things to be more proactive in fixing my technique or healing my body properly.
Some more general stuff as well. I heard you mentioned yesterday that you wish you got into sports.
Yeah, I wish I had played other sports. I would have played
further.
other sports like when I was in high school and middle school and
So kind of checked it basically.
Yeah, and if I could have done like 5 or 6 different sports and played a lot of stuff, I would have a bigger athletic base, a little more foundation. But
yeah.
Yeah.
How big of a difference do you think it would have made, if at all?
I have no idea. I mean, it might not have made any difference. Maybe that's just the level of lifter I was, but I imagine it would make some difference, right?
Yeah. So when you program for people, I'm going to ask you this again, because you trained your wife, right, to basically win a world record in weightlifting or powerlifting? Powerlifting, right. How did you, your approach to doing that, did she just start out not lifting at all?
No, well when I met her, her best squat was 104 kilos, so about 225, and she weighed about 130 pounds. Yeah. And we just I built a program, you know. She'd been lifting for years. She'd done years of Olympic weightlifting.
Right.
And so for powerlifting, we just built a small program around squat, bench, and deadlift, and progressed from week to week through those workouts. And you know, she ended up making the world record total, which was 385 at the time, 382 at the time. She pulled like about, I want to say she pulled 175 kilos.
Right. Yeah.
But it was more of just doing it for an off, like it was her third powerlifting meet ever. So
she had competed quite a bit actually.
She only had 3. That was the third. She bombed at the second one.
Oh wow.
And did terrible at the first one, and then the third one finally got it right.
Oh, got your world record.
Yeah.
How long did you train that for leading up to?
I mean, the preparatory phase for that was, I want to say 6 weeks, and then maybe 4 weeks of competition block. So like a 10-week program to that meet.
So she was really close to the record already.
She bombed at the meet before, so we didn't really know what her abilities were. But she did like a 308 squat and a 165 bench, and then pulled 385 or 380, something like that. I don't remember exactly.
And then just from that, so basically just, how was the program like, just to in specifics, if you can?
It was squats, bench presses, and deadlifts.
That's it, just
I don't remember now. God, it was, I think she squatted 2 or 3 times in a week, and then bench pressed twice, and deadlifted once. But I don't remember. She probably has the program at home. Maybe it was twice a week squatting, once bench, once deadlift. I don't remember.
Something basically.
Something very basic, very simple. We started with probably 5s on the squat and deadlift. And I think she did triples in the bench for longer because it was she wanted her shoulder for weightlifting, so she stayed kind of lighter, worked up less volume overall. She didn't want her shoulders to get all tight.
Right.
Because she ended up doing a weightlifting meet right after that.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah, we were training for both at the same time, so I don't remember the exact program.
Oh, that's interesting.
Off the top of my head, but yeah.
How exactly did you manage that then? Because I saw the interview you did with Chad, where you basically said you tried to keep people from doing that.
It's not that I try to keep somebody from doing it. It's a compromise. So if you want to do exceptional in both or in one or the other, you're gonna have to, they require slightly different qualities, right?
Yeah.
Weightlifting is not a sport that weightlifting is a sport that has speed component, and powerlifting doesn't really have any speed component.
Yeah.
As much as good to move fast, it doesn't really affect it's not necessary, right?
Yeah.
So there's a much more complicated technique in weightlifting, and then there's a speed component, and so you can't just, if you squat and deadlift and bench press solely, you're going to slow down too much.
Right, yeah.
And you're not going to have the same suppleness in your tissue. There's just a lot of stuff that needs to be different. It's small things, but it needs to be different. So you have to basically set your program up to maximize those things at the right time.
Yeah.
And then capitalize on stuff at meets, and then switch gears and start pushing towards weightlifting or powerlifting. So for example, if you had if I was going to set it up, I would set it up where maybe, let's say the year starts for you in January. So we plan for a whole year. So you have a powerlifting meet that you look for in May.
Yeah.
Right? Or March. Let's say March powerlifting, April, May, June weightlifting, and then maybe July, August, September, maybe 2 or 3 more weightlifting meets, and then a big powerlifting meet in November.
Right.
So 2 powerlifting meets and then a few weightlifting meets in between. So the first 3 months, that block of training would be heavily influenced for powerlifting. So you'd have maybe a lot more high volume squats and deadlifts and much more bench pressing. And then your snatch and clean and jerk exercises are basically done only at maintenance levels to keep technique consistent, timing consistent, because it's easier to transition from powerlifting to weightlifting if your technique is consistent.
Right. So
it's harder if your technique falls apart each time. So then, let's say after March you do your powerlifting meet, you peak for that, and then after March you shift gears, you still keep the powerlifting movements there, the volume's still relatively high, but as we get closer to the, what did we say, June?
I think it was a June.
June meet in weightlifting, let's say it's the national championships, you would shift gears, more aggressively towards weightlifting, where you put bench press aside for a long time.
So you just completely stop doing that?
Not completely stop,
really
maybe you go from bench pressing every week multiple times to bench pressing once a week, or maybe once every 2 weeks, right? And maybe you incorporate more presses, more push presses as an exchange. And
right, to make up for that.
Well, to keep your triceps and shoulders stronger, also to complement weightlifting a little bit. And then once you go from that,
oh, it's cool.
Get out! Jesus Christ.
So then once you go from...
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, so June is the weightlifting meet.
Yeah.
After June, you're going to do a few more weightlifting meets because it's a little more conducive to keep your sport form in weightlifting at the same level and compete frequently. And in which case you could go from June, July, August, September.
Basically, you just kind of almost stay peak next time.
Well, you can stay peak. That's a great time period to utilize the Bulgarian style of training where you would maintain a high output of 90% plus lifts for a long time and switch your squatting to much more high frequency, high intensity, kind of max out more frequently. Because you've already taken the first half of the year and built a pretty solid foundation of strength, right? And probably hopefully some muscular size. Then you switch to, this more like traditional Bulgarian approach where you can maintain that top shape for longer.
Yeah.
You're not going to necessarily improve your results significantly, but you can maintain the results you have and maybe improve them slightly over that course of
however long you compete.
4 months, let's say.
Yeah.
3 or 4 months. With appropriate, deloads and whatnot in there.
Yeah.
Not a lot of deloads because if you deload frequently with that program, you'll be sort of rusty and you'll be struggling to keep your technique consistent. You're going to notice it. You'll know if you did it, you'll notice.
But between meets, would you still kind of, periodize it so do more volume at the beginning? No. Or would you just keep it like completely?
You have to keep it at high intensity, high frequency for a long time.
Right.
But I would say after maybe 3 or 4 months, that's probably a good span of time to do that. And then maybe you end that in September, whatever. Maybe then you start off in end of September, or maybe the beginning of September is your last weightlifting meet. Then September, October become an 8-week long preparatory block and competition block, 4 weeks each, or 6 weeks and 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
In which you increase the volume and reduce the frequency again, and then incorporate bench press again, deadlift much more aggressively, deadlift with more volume, bench with more volume, squat with more volume. Peak for a powerlifting meet in November or December, and then start again. Or maybe you peak for a powerlifting meet in November, and then you take another short burst of time doing more high intensity lifting, like the Bulgarian stuff you did prior cycle, and do one more weightlifting meet at the end of the year, like the American program. So that would be a program where you could do powerlifting significantly, weightlifting significantly, attend the national championships in weightlifting and the American Open in weightlifting, both with a slightly different priority, right?
Yeah.
Or you could flip it around and do the opposite, right? The inverse of that.
Yeah.
Where you do weightlifting first, powerlifting second. But it's either way they play off each other well if you have it structured.
Yeah,
like that.
right. How do you best go about maintaining, say, so while you're doing the peaking for powerlifting, like the whole 3 months preparation for that, how do you go about maintaining your clean jerk and your snatch?
For, let's say you have a 3-month block training for powerlifting.
Yeah.
The first 8 weeks you have to have snatch and clean and jerk in there.
So, but how, like sets and reps and things, just keep it like you normally would, basically? But
You have to do at least maintenance loads, right? So you could define a maintenance load one way or the other, right? maintenance load might be 80% for at least 15 reps or something, or 80% for 5 triples is sort of enough to maintain your adaptations in that exercise. Whereas anything less than that, you're going to degrade and lose those qualities.
Yeah.
Anything more than that, it's going to start impeding on the adaptations you make for the powerlifting stuff.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, they're conducive programs. There's other ways to set it up. You can write programs. I mean, a good weightlifter should be able to walk into a powerlifting meet and do pretty well.
Yeah.
They squat. Your squat's the same, right? Your squat training is
Kind of
similar.
the same.
Well, if you squat high bar the whole time.
Yeah.
Again, it's a compromise, but so you're not going to have a great low bar squat. Or you're not going to do a lot of low bar squats because it doesn't transfer one way or the other. It's just a single-sided transfer to powerlifting.
Right.
So you're going to high bar squat and front squat mostly, and then your deadlifts are going to be more strict because you don't want to destroy the technique of the lifts.
Right.
So your deadlifting is going to be more snatch, clean deadlift. You know, you could pull sumo as a separate exercise and just pull that way, but you're probably going to have your hips deconditioned a little bit for that exercise.
Yeah.
The speed of the deadlift is so much less than that of the snatch and clean jerk that the transference is a lot lower. It builds your back strength up tremendously, which is important, but
Yeah.
you know, you're not going to doing super slow, heavy conventional deadlifts with your hips higher than you would for a snatch or a clean in a different kind of position.
Yeah.
Isn't the best thing for your snatch and clean and jerk. Doesn't mean it's super detrimental, but it's certainly not as beneficial as having the program incorporate exercises that are more closely related.
Right. Tim, can you check that thing is still running? Can you see it? Because I don't know how much memory there's in it. It should just say a time if it's...
Looks like it's around.
Cool. Okay, so what if I were to be an asshole and I want to compete in weightlifting and then 3 weeks later I'm powerlifting and I wanted to do decently at both and say I had like 3 months to prepare for that?
You have to try it and see. I mean, if you...
So I mean, you'd have to make a compromise in that case for...
Yeah, I mean, the compromise I would make is just what's more important, and then it's like any two competitions.
Yeah.
If you train for weightlifting and you want to do 10 meets in a row, I mean, you have to have a program that facilitates that. If you have weightlifting and you want to do 2 meets back to back, I had a girl do 3 meets back to back, and we just developed a program that worked for it. Each meet she made a PR.
Oh, nice.
PR total each meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you can write programs that work well for that. Powerlifting is generally a little bit slower to sport. Like, progress is made in pretty abundant amounts. So like, you don't necessarily have a need to do 3 meets back to back. You do a meet every training cycle, and the training cycle lasts maybe from 8 weeks to 16 weeks or 20 weeks even.
Yeah.
Where there's no real point, right? If you're going to add 40 pounds to your squat or 60 pounds to your squat, you might as well do that rather than doing meets meet after meet after meet after meet.
Right,
So
but just if someone were to want to do compete in both, and you have 2 meets coming up like pretty much at the same time.
The same principle. I mean, the only thing that might be different is you'd have to add bench press in the whole time.
Yeah, keep that in.
Yeah, I mean, it's not unusual for a person to do weightlifting and then turn around and bench press PRs. I mean, I've seen it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
You also just have to be realistic about your goals. If you're doing both sports for fun, then you have to realize that it's for fun.
Yeah.
So your expectations are to have fun rather than to win, do this and that, right?
Yeah.
So with that being the case, just set yourself up in a position where you're not doing so much training that it destroys you and you can't recover, and then you're having a hard time making progress, or you're beat up or hurt, or you get injured, right?
Right.
If it's for fun, it's for fun. So the results are second to having fun. It's being realistic, being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
If you're doing it because you want to be the best weightlifter in powerlifting in the world, then I don't know how to.
You'd probably just pick one, but yeah, it was just more for the sake of asking it.
I mean, if it was weightlifting first, then powerlifting second, I would just include bench press in the preparatory phase.
Right, of course. Yeah, so I'd say, what are the biggest mistakes and successes in your training you feel? What complete shit, and what is you think really made you successful as a lifter? Because I think everyone has kind of that mix of both.
The biggest mistakes I made were not competing enough. When I was younger, I lived in Montana, so I was far away from the national championships most of the time.
Right.
And I neglected spending the money to travel to that competition, even though I had qualified a few times, because I felt like I wasn't good enough to go because I wasn't going to do well, so it would be a waste of my money. and I would wait till I got good before I went. And I realize now, after years later, that you know, with lifters, it's the other way around, right? If you go, you'll get better than if you don't go, right? If you go, you'll become a better lifter. And going to those meets is going to be the thing that helps you become a better lifter. So not competing enough was the biggest mistake, and then some of the things I did right were probably, you know, looking for better information and looking and seeking out better coaches and more knowledge and stuff.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with a lot of different coaches. Keep me open minded about it. I didn't just say, oh, this one way of doing it is it, and that one way is wrong. I mean, I coach different lifters very differently.
So I shouldn't climb my nipples to the floor when I'm squatting, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's some people are into that. Some people are into the floor.
Right, Jacob?
Some people do some strange things when they lift. You know, there's a lot of cultish followings. It's easy to say, especially on the internet, it's easier to have an absolute and say this way is the best way. But you know, if you just take a minute and look around, you realize that it's not the best coach in the world for you. It's the right coach or the right system.
Right.
If it's something that gets results out of you because you enjoy it and you can work hard at it and produce results from it, that's a lot better than because the best in the world told you to do it. The best in the world has, you know, they're the best in the world, so they're going to do it, and that's the best system.
Right. Okay, yeah, I get that. Cool. Let's see what else I have written down now. Yeah, so like, just kind of into this as well. Like when you look for good information, like how do you know if someone's full of shit or not? I mean,
if you read enough, you'll eventually find that people are, you know.
Yeah.
For one, I look at who the person is. If they've never accomplished it themselves, or coached somebody to do it, or have a really good education in it, then you know, a couple of those things are necessary to be good. That's what Chad's always saying, right?
Yeah.
You gotta have 2 of those 3. If you've never done it, never coached anyone, and have no education, then you can't.
Right.
You have to be skeptical of that information.
Yeah, because it's so easy to like put out your own shit now, you know, with the internet things.
It doesn't mean that the information people give is bad because they're inexperienced.
Yeah.
It's just that a lot of times people regurgitate stuff they've heard somewhere else. I mean, everything I'm telling you about the Bulgarian system was figured out by the man who made it.
Yeah.
So secondhand from me. It's not my system. I didn't invent it.
Yeah. I mean, you've actually run it, so you can, you know, for a long time, so you can speak about it and say.
I think you have a good experience, but that's it, right? Whereas that man can give you his experience, which was the culmination of lots of years of trial and error and figuring it out.
Right,
you know, I started at the point that he was already far into it. So I mean, you know, you go on YouTube and look up some guy and he's, you know, he's been telling you to do this program or that program. It's not his program. I mean, no program is unique anymore. Everything was done before, everything was tried before. As much as we believe that there's some new thing or I figured this out, right, you know, some guy invented this or that, like, it's all been done before.
Right.
Of course it has. It'd be foolish to think that you're the first to do it.
So Ice Cream Fitness isn't like a magic program.
Ice Cream Fitness?
Jason Blaha's 5x5?
Well, I don't know Jason Blaha. I watched a lot of Jason Blaha's videos the last couple of weeks because I was unaware of who he was.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's legitimately one of my favorite YouTube channels. I enjoy it a lot.
Cool.
He's got some incredible videos where he's got. I'm a big fan.
Cool.
Big fan of his.
Yeah.
He's a guy that's, it's hard to pinpoint where his knowledge ends and where reality begins. He's got some interesting.
Yeah, I mean his dark past as well. I mean that's pretty cool.
He's got a dark past. Yeah, I don't know if that's. I believe he's got some kind of like espionage past.
Yeah.
Or something.
You wouldn't lie about that on the internet. But yeah.
No, well, I mean, you wouldn't make it up. It wasn't. I mean, why would you make something like that up? Clearly, you don't need to. I mean, he's already got a girlfriend. She needs dick from him twice a day, I believe. So.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble, so I think we'll switch subjects now.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to know as well is, so after you got fucked up basically from weightlifting, you said you basically got depressed for a long time, and you. Yeah. How did you just get out of that and end up like starting a business and kind of getting back on track basically?
You heard the story, or?
I never actually heard it, so that's the thing.
The story was I was really not doing well.
Yeah.
But then I was in the gym one day working out, or I wasn't working out, I was coaching. I hadn't lifted for about 6 months. And a friend of mine was training, and he was complaining about doing squats with like 200 kilos.
Right.
And so I told him that I could do the squat cold without warming up because it was only 200 kilos. And one of the clients in the gym asked me if that was possible, or said, "Can you do that?" I think he bet me like $20 that I couldn't do it, and so I did it and took the money, and that was kind of this thing that got me back into it a little bit. And so I just kept training, and then I kept squatting and doing stuff, and then eventually ended up doing powerlifting meet and getting into that. And then we started our gym because we had a lot of clients. I'd just been coaching a lot, so.
So you just kind of built your business basically on coaching people?
I just built a network of lifters and coached them and whatnot.
Yeah. Fuck off. Yeah.
So.
Cool. Well, so when did you actually start the place? So you didn't?
I started the gym.
Oh, it's fine.
4 years ago.
You can whisper if you want.
4 years ago, in 2012.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I started a gym to have a gym. I started a gym because I needed a place to train the people I was coaching.
Right.
And so it just kind of happened that way. I would do it differently if I started the gym from scratch. My advice would be, if you're starting a gym, is to make sure that you make sure that you have somebody who can take care of a lot of those jobs. So build the program, the business plan out,
yeah,
accounting for all the jobs in the